The Galactic Court was a marvel of ancient architecture and advanced technology, a floating citadel orbiting the dying red star Solaris. It was here that the galaxy's greatest disputes were settled, where the conquerors of worlds and their defiant foes faced judgment beneath the glimmering dome of the celestial tribunal. Today, the chamber's attention was focused on one man, Captain David Reyes of Earth. David stood alone on a raised platform, shackles binding his wrists. He was tall, with dark hair peppered with gray and eyes that burned with a fierce intensity. His tattered uniform, scorched and frayed from countless battles, was a testament to Earth's defiance. Around him, the gallery buzzed with whispers, a sea of eyes from every corner of the galaxy fixated on the human who had dared to challenge the Paxian dominion. Presiding over the court was High Justiciar Krolis, a towering creature with crystalline skin that refracted light in dazzling patterns. His voice resonated through the chamber, magnified by unseen amplifiers. Captain Reyes of Earth, Krolis intoned, "You stand accused of leading a rebellion against the Paxian dominion. Your crimes include the destruction of military installations, the refusal to submit to lawful governance, and the incitement of planetary unrest. How do you plead?" David lifted his head, meeting the justiciar's gaze without flinching. "I plead guilty," he said, his voice steady, "to resisting tyranny." A ripple of discontent swept through the gallery. One of the justiciars, a serpent-like being named Varric, hissed in disdain. "Typical human bravado," he sneered. "Defiance for the sake of defiance." Krolis raised a crystalline hand, silencing the murmurs. "Captain Reyes, the court is not interested in bravado. We seek understanding. Why did humanity refuse to surrender when defeat was inevitable? Why persist in the face of certain annihilation?" David took a deep breath, the weight of his memories pressing down on him. "You want to know why humans don't surrender," he said. "Then you need to understand what you asked of us. To bow, to break, to become something less than who we are. But we aren't made that way." Explained, Krolis demanded, his eyes glimmering. So David did. It began 5 years ago, when the Paxian Dominion's warships darkened Earth's skies. They came with promises of order and prosperity if humanity would kneel. When Earth's leaders refused, the Paxians unleashed their fury. Major cities were reduced to ash, millions perished in a single day. It was not a war of conquest, but a brutal reminder of the Paxians' power. David had been a commander in the Earth Defense Force, a soldier who had seen his share of conflict. But nothing could have prepared him for the onslaught. The Paxians' weapons tore through Earth's defenses, as if they were paper. Their troops, clad in impenetrable exosuits, advanced with mechanical precision. Resistance seemed futile. The first act of defiance came from a small village in northern Canada. As Paxian forces marched through, a handful of farmers, hunters, and teenagers armed with hunting rifles ambushed them. It was suicidal, but they managed to destroy an armored convoy, stalling the Paxians for hours. When reinforcements arrived, the villagers fought to the last breath. Not a single one surrendered. Word of their sacrifice spread. Across the globe, similar acts of defiance erupted. People with no military training, armed with nothing but determination, stood against the invaders. And in every battle, in every skirmish, they fought as if surrender was not even a possibility. I watched families turn their homes into fortresses, David told the court, his voice low but resolute. I saw children carry messages through war zones, knowing they might never come back. We refused to bow because every act of defiance reminded us of who we were. Futile gestures, Varric spat. Sentimental nonsense. David's eyes hardened. You think it was futile? It cost you time. It cost you resources. It cost you soldiers. Your war of conquest became a war of attrition. The court listened as David described Earth's guerrilla campaign. Paxian troops, accustomed to crushing organized armies, were thrown into disarray by humanity's relentless hit-and-run tactics. Saboteurs blew up supply depots, engineers hacked into Paxian communication networks, and mechanics turned scrap metal into weapons. Humanity adapted, evolved, and refused to be broken. One of the justiciars, a feathered being named Solara, leaned forward, her bright plumage shimmering. But what of hope, Captain Reyes? Surely there were moments when despair gripped your people. Why did they continue to fight? David paused, memories flooding back. There had been moments, many of them, when hope seemed lost. He remembered the siege of Avalon Ridge, a critical outpost where thousands of refugees had sought shelter. The Paxians surrounded it, cutting off all supplies. Weeks passed and hunger gnawed at the defenders. Disease spread. Morale crumbled. David, then a colonel, had been tasked with holding the line. He knew surrender would mean execution or enslavement for the refugees. So he gathered the remaining defenders and spoke plainly. "I won't lie to you," he had said, his voice echoing through the battered corridors. "This is it. They want us to give up. They want to break us. But we don't surrender. We fight, because every breath we take denies them victory." The defenders, wounded, starving, exhausted, rallied. They held the line against wave after wave of Paxian assaults. When ammunition ran out, they used blades. When blades broke, they fought with fists and teeth. And when the Paxians finally breached the walls, they were met with defiance that defied logic. In the end, reinforcements arrived, driving the Paxians back. Avalon Ridge stood. "We didn't fight because we thought we'd win," David told the court. "We fought because surrender was a death of the soul. And we weren't ready to die." But defiance came at a price. The Paxians, frustrated by Earth's resilience, escalated their tactics. They deployed weapons designed to terrorize: chemical agents, sonic disruptors, psychological warfare. They broadcast messages of despair, promising mercy to those who surrendered and destruction to those who resisted. One of these broadcasts featured captured resistance leaders paraded before the cameras. The Paxians demanded that they urge their people to surrender. Instead, the leaders spoke of courage, of standing together, of refusing to bow. Enraged, the Paxians executed them on live feed. David's jaw clenched as he recounted this memory. The Paxians thought fear would break us. But every execution, every act of terror, only made us stronger. They showed us what was at stake. The court murmured. The concept of resilience through suffering was alien to many. Among the Paxians, surrender was seen as a pragmatic choice and acknowledgement of power. But humans viewed surrender as a betrayal of everything they held dear. Justiciar Crowless's voice cut through the noise. "You speak of defiance as if it is noble. But at what cost, Captain Reyes? How many of your people perished because you refused to yield?" Too many, David admitted, the weight of those losses etched into his features. Every life lost was a scar on our souls. But we fought for those who couldn't, for those who came before us, for those who would come after. He spoke of the underground sanctuaries where scientists, engineers, and scholars worked tirelessly to find ways to counter the Paxian threat. He described how entire communities banded together, sharing resources, caring for the wounded, and never losing faith. In the darkest moments, they found strength in each other. David's testimony was interrupted by the sound of metallic footsteps. A group of Paxian guards marched into the chamber, flanking a prisoner, a human woman with short-cropped hair and defiant eyes. Her name was Lieutenant Kara Holt, one of David's closest allies. She had been captured during the final days of the war. "Kara," David whispered, his heart pounding. The guards shoved her to the floor. Varric sneered. "Is this another of your defiant heroes, Captain?" David glared at him. "She's more than that. She represents everything you can't break." Kara rose to her feet, blood trickling from her lip. "Nice speech, Captain," she said, a hint of a smile on her face. "Don't stop on my account." The sight of her ignited a fire in David's chest. He turned to the court. "You wanted to know why we don't surrender? It's because of people like her. Because every time one of us falls, another stands. Because we believe that freedom is worth any cost." Crowless's crystalline eyes narrowed. "And what would you have us do, Captain Reyes? Your defiance disrupted the order of the galaxy. The Paxian Dominion seeks retribution." "The retribution won't bring you peace," David said. "You saw what happened when you tried to crush us. It only made us stronger. If you want true peace, it starts with understanding." The chamber fell silent. For a moment, it seemed as if the court might listen. But then Varric spoke, his voice dripping with venom. "Understanding? Foolishness. Humans are a blight, a cancer that must be eradicated." David's eyes met Varric's, and he saw the truth. There would be no reasoning with those who saw defiance as a threat, but he also saw something else: fear. The Paxians feared what they could not control. And that fear was their weakness. Krolis raised a hand. The court will deliberate. As David and Kara were led away, she leaned in. Think they'll listen. Maybe some of them, David said. But not all. So what now? We keep fighting, David said, his voice firm. Because we don't surrender. Kara nodded, a spark of determination in her eyes. Damn right. They walked together, their chains clinking with every step. Behind them, the Galactic Court debated humanity's fate, unaware that the very defiance they sought to crush was the spark that would change the galaxy forever. David and Kara were escorted through the labyrinthine corridors of the Galactic Court, their wrists bound by energy shackles. The guards, stoic and silent, marched them toward a holding cell carved from translucent material that pulsed with an eerie light. The walls seemed to hum, a reminder of the immense power wielded by the Paxian Dominion. Despite the oppressive atmosphere, David held his head high. Surrender was not in his nature, and it never would be. Kara glanced at him as they reached the cell. So, what's the plan? She whispered. We wait, David replied, his voice low. For now. The guards pushed them inside and activated a containment field, shimmering blue energy crackling to life. With a final cold glare, the Paxians departed, leaving the two humans alone. Kara paced, restless energy coursing through her. Waiting has never been my strong suit. David leaned against the translucent wall, feeling the vibrations of the court's deliberations resonate through it. We have to be patient. If we push too hard, they'll shut us down. And if they decide to execute us, Kara's voice was sharp, but beneath it was a flicker of worry. Then we fight, David said simply, like we always do. Kara sighed and sat down, crossing her legs. I hate that you're always so calm. Part of the job, David replied, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. For a moment they sat in silence. Kara traced patterns on the floor with her finger, her expression distant. Do you think it mattered? All the fighting, the sacrifices, do you think it changed anything? David's jaw clenched. It mattered. Every single act of defiance, every life given, it all mattered. The Paxians fear us because they know we won't bend, and that's why they're desperate to crush us. Fear. Kara's eyes met his. I hope you're right. Before David could respond, the containment field shimmered and a figure stepped through. It was Solara, the feathered justiciar whose bright plumage shimmered in iridescent hues. She studied the two humans with a mixture of curiosity and something else, perhaps respect. Captain Reyes. Lieutenant Holt, she said, her voice soft but commanding. The court is divided. Many see your defiance as a threat to stability. Others see it as a symbol of hope. David straightened. Which side are you on? Solara tilted her head, her feathers rustling. I believe that understanding is the key to lasting peace. But there are forces at play here that wish to see you eradicated. Varric and his faction are relentless. Why are you telling us this? Kara asked, suspicion coloring her words. Because there may still be a way to save your people, Solara said, but it will require something more than defiance. It will require trust. David's eyes narrowed. What do you want from us? There is a faction within the Paxian Dominion that seeks to reform it from within, Solara explained. They believe the Dominion's obsession with control has led to stagnation and decay. If you can prove that humanity's resilience is more than mere stubbornness, if you can show that it has the power to inspire true change, they may have a chance to sway the court. David exchanged a glance with Kara. And how do we do that? Solara stepped closer. There is a trial, a test of will and spirit. It is ancient, predating even the Dominion. Those who undertake it are judged not by their words, but by their actions. A trial. Kara's eyes blazed. Sounds like a trap. It very well could be, Solara admitted, but it is the only way to prove that humanity's refusal to surrender is more than a threat, it is a beacon of hope. David considered her words carefully. What's the catch? If you fail, Solara said, not only will you die, but your people will be declared a danger to galactic stability. The Paxian Dominion will justify their extermination. Silence filled the cell as the weight of her words sank in. Failure meant extinction, but the alternative, doing nothing, was unthinkable. David stepped forward, his eyes hard with determination. "We'll do it." Kara rose, fists clenched. "Damn right we will." The trial was to take place in the crucible, a vast arena on the far side of the Galactic Court. It was a place of legend, where champions and leaders from across the galaxy had once tested their mettle. Now, it was a proving ground for two humans who sought to save their people. David and Kara stood at the edge of the arena, the ground beneath them trembling with latent energy. High above, the gallery was packed with spectators, justiciars, dignitaries, and curious onlookers who had come to witness the spectacle. The air crackled with anticipation. Chief Justiciar Krolus's voice boomed through the arena. "Captain Reyes, Lieutenant Holt, the trial before you is one of endurance, resolve, and unity. You will face challenges designed to break your spirit and force you to surrender. Should you fall, your people will fall with you." David nodded, his expression grim. "Understood." The ground shifted and pillars rose from the arena floor. Energy barriers crackled to life, forming a maze that twisted and pulsed with light. Krolus continued, "The first challenge: navigate the maze of despair. It will test your resolve and your bond. Should you falter, you will be lost forever." Without another word, the barriers opened, and the maze beckoned. David and Kara exchanged a glance. "Ready?" he asked. "Never been readier," she replied. They stepped into the maze. From the moment they entered, the maze of despair lived up to its name. The walls shifted and changed, disorienting them at every turn. Illusions sprang to life, visions of fallen comrades, twisted memories, and moments of overwhelming loss. It was a psychological assault designed to shatter their will. David saw the face of his wife, her eyes filled with pain as she reached for him. "You left us," the illusion whispered, her voice trembling. "You chose war over family." He staggered, the weight of guilt pressing down on him. "No," he whispered. "This isn't real." Beside him, Kara faced her own nightmare, a vision of her younger brother, taken by Paxian forces. "You couldn't save me," the apparition said, his voice cold and accusing. "You failed." Tears streamed down her face. "I tried," she choked out. "I tried." The illusions closed in, their words like daggers. But then David's hand found Kara's, squeezing tightly. "It's not real," he said, his voice stronger now. "We have to keep moving." She nodded, drawing strength from his touch. Together they pushed forward, each step a battle against despair. The illusions clawed at them, but they refused to break. When one stumbled, the other pulled them up. When doubt crept in, they reminded each other of their purpose. Finally, they reached the maze's heart, a chamber bathed in blinding light. The illusions shattered and the energy barriers dissipated. They had passed the first trial. High above, the gallery buzzed with astonishment. Many had believed the humans would fall, broken by their own memories, but they had emerged stronger, their bond unshaken. Krolus's voice echoed once more. "The second trial awaits." The ground trembled again, and the arena transformed. Platforms rose from the floor, suspended over a chasm that seemed to stretch into infinity. Blades of energy swung back and forth, and jets of flame erupted without warning. "The trial of endurance," Krolus announced. "Cross the platforms without falling. Only those with unbreakable resolve will succeed." David and Kara exchanged a grim nod. There was no time to waste. They leapt onto the first platform, narrowly avoiding a jet of flame. The heat singed their skin, but they pressed on. Each step was a dance with death blades whirred inches from their bodies, and the platform swayed beneath their feet. Kara slipped, her foot catching on the edge. For a heart-stopping moment, she dangled over the abyss. David lunged, grabbing her arm with all his strength. "I've got you!" She gritted her teeth, muscles burning as she clung to him. "Don't let go. Never." With a final heave, he pulled her back onto the platform. They collapsed, gasping for breath, but there was no time to rest. The platform shifted again, and the blades whirred faster. Every instinct screamed at them to stop, to surrender, but they pushed on. When they finally reached the other side, battered and burned, the arena was silent. The spectators watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Two humans outmatched and outgunned had defied every expectation. Krollus's crystalline eyes narrowed. Impressive. But there is one final trial. The arena transformed once more. This time, the challenge was clear. A massive, armored beast emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with malice. The trial of unity, Krollus said. Defeat the beast, or be consumed by it. David and Kara faced the creature, exhaustion weighing heavily on them. But they stood together, as they always had. One last fight, Kara asked, a tired grin on her face. One last fight, David agreed. The beast charged. The ground shook beneath them as the massive beast charged, its footsteps like thunderclaps. The creature was unlike anything David and Kara had faced before, towering over them with a body encased in dense, chitinous armor and glowing eyes that promised destruction. It moved with surprising speed, its claws carving deep furrows in the arena floor. David's instincts kicked in. Kara, we have to find a weakness. No kidding, she shot back, dodging a swipe that would have cleaved her in two. The beast's claws sparked against the ground, leaving molten trails. She rolled to her feet, breathing hard. You see anything that isn't armor? Not yet, David admitted, circling the creature, his eyes scanning for any vulnerability. Keep moving. The beast roared a deep, guttural sound that shook the air. With a swift motion, it whipped its tail, knocking Kara off her feet and sending her crashing into the arena wall. David's heart lurched. Kara. She groaned, forcing herself up despite the pain. Fine blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, but her eyes remained defiant. The beast lunged at David. He sidestepped at the last moment, driving his blade between the armor plates of its shoulder. Sparks flew, but the creature barely flinched. With a snarl, it spun, flinging David aside like a rag doll. He hit the ground hard, pain flaring through his body. We can't keep this up, Kara muttered, her breath ragged. David forced himself to his feet, his vision swimming. There has to be a way. The beast's eyes glowed brighter as it charged again. This time, it unleashed a torrent of energy from its maw-blinding light and searing heat. David and Kara dove in opposite directions, barely avoiding the blast. The energy scorched the ground, leaving a smoking crater in its wake. David, Kara called, her voice urgent. Its eyes. They're exposed when it charges. He understood immediately. We have to bait it. Kara nodded, determination etched into her features. I'll keep it busy. You take the shot. Before he could protest, she sprinted toward the beast, drawing its attention. Hey, ugly, she shouted, hurling debris at its face. Come and get me. The creature roared and lunged, its eyes blazing. Kara dodged, moving with agility born of desperation. David positioned himself behind the beast, gripping his blade tightly. He had one chance. As the creature's focus remained on Kara, David leapt onto its back, scrambling up its armored spine. The heat radiating from its body was nearly unbearable, but he pressed on. When he reached its head, he could see the glow of its eyes, pulsing with energy. With every ounce of strength he had left, he drove his blade down, piercing the exposed tissue. The beast howled, thrashing wildly. David clung to it as it bucked and writhed, its movements erratic and desperate. Kara. I'm here, she shouted, rushing to his side. Together they drove their weapons deeper, working as one. The beast's struggles weakened, its roars fading to a pained whimper. Finally, with a final shudder, it collapsed. David and Kara rolled off its back, landing hard on the ground. For a moment there was silence, then the arena erupted with noise. Cheers, gasps, and shouts echoed from the gallery. The two humans lay there, exhausted and battered, but alive. High above, Chief Justice Krollus rose from his seat, his crystalline form catching the light. Captain Reyes, Lieutenant Holt, you have passed the trials. Your resilience and unity are extraordinary. David forced himself to stand, pulling Kara up with him. Is that enough for you? Crowless's eyes gleamed. The court has seen what makes your species unique, but this decision is not mine alone. The council will deliberate. More waiting, Kara muttered, leaning against David for support. Great. They were led back to their holding cell, where medics tended to their wounds. Hours passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Finally, Solara returned, her expression unreadable. The council has reached a decision, she said. David and Kara exchanged a glance, and David prompted. Solara stepped closer. You have proven that humanity's defiance is not rooted in recklessness, but in something far more profound. Your resilience, your bonds with one another, and your refusal to break have shown that you are not a threat to stability, but a potential force for change. David felt a surge of hope. So? The court will not condone further acts of aggression against Earth, Solara declared. The Paxian Dominion's actions will be re-evaluated, and measures will be taken to ensure that your people are protected. Kara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. We did it. But Solara's expression darkened. Be warned, there are those who will not accept this decision. Varric and his faction will seek retribution. You must remain vigilant. David nodded. We always are. Back on Earth, the news of the trial's outcome spread like wildfire. For the first time in years, there was hope, a fragile, flickering hope that peace was possible. But David and Kara knew the fight wasn't over. The Paxians would not forget, and the galaxy was still a dangerous place. Standing atop a ridge overlooking a scarred battlefield, David watched as survivors rebuilt their homes. Kara joined him, her gaze thoughtful. Do you think we'll ever stop fighting? Maybe one day, David said. But until then, we stand. Together. Kara smiled, a rare moment of warmth. Together. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the land, they stood side by side, two warriors who had refused to surrender, ready to face whatever came next.